Okay, so was it just me, or did that Super Bowl commercial with the electric dog sled team, like, totally change the game?
Hmm.
It's like suddenly everyone I talk to is an EV expert now.
Right.
But, your sources tell me you're way ahead of the curve here. You're not just interested in the hype.
Hmm.
You want to understand the ripple effects of this whole electric revolution.
Yeah.
And that's what we're diving into today, how EVs could transform, well, everything. Our cities, the global economy.
What's fascinating is that we're really on the cusp of a massive technological shift here.
Hmm.
This isn't just about swapping your gas guzzler for a greener ride. We're talking about a fundamental change in how we power our world.
Right.
And as with any major shift, there are going to be some really big challenges and some really big opportunities.
Yeah. Like, remember those clunky car phones from the 90s?
Yeah,
This feels way bigger than that.
for sure.
We're talking about a future where your car is more like a smartphone on wheels.
Exactly. And the heart of this whole revolution, it really lies in the battery. That source you shared about solid-state batteries,
Yeah.
that's not just some tech term. That's the key to unlocking the full potential of EVs.
Okay, so break that down for me. What does that actually mean for someone like me who's maybe a little intimidated by the tech side of things?
Okay, imagine this. You're low on power, so you pull into a charging station, right?
Okay.
But instead of waiting around for an hour, you're juiced up and back on the road in the time it takes to just grab a coffee.
Wow.
That's the promise of these solid-state batteries. Charging speeds comparable to what we're used to with our phones.
Hmm.
No more range anxiety. No more planning your life around charging times.
Okay, now that future I can get behind.
Right.
And it's not just about the car itself, right? This whole charging infrastructure needs a makeover.
Absolutely. Think about it. What if charging stations were less like gas stations and more like rest stops,
Yeah.
Comfortable places to relax, grab a bite to eat, maybe even get some work done while your car powers up.
Right.
This is about making the entire EV experience seamless and enjoyable.
So we're not just talking about a new car, we're talking about a whole new way of thinking about travel and our relationship with energy, which is exciting, but also a little daunting, wouldn't you say?
It is, and that's why I think it's so important to look at this transition from all angles. For example, that source you shared raises a really crucial point about the ethical sourcing of battery materials.
That's something I hadn't even considered. We're so focused on the environmental benefits of EVs, but what about the impact of actually making all those batteries?
Yeah, it's a really critical piece of the puzzle. And that source, I mean, they really emphasize that we can't just sweep this under the rug.
Right.
We're talking about mining practices, supply chains, the whole life cycle of these materials.
Yeah.
If we're really serious about creating a truly sustainable system here, we need to make sure that every step of this process is responsible and ethical.
It's like they say, you're only as strong as your weakest link.
Exactly.
And so how do we even begin to make sure that those links are strong?
Well, that's where things get really interesting. The source points to some potential solutions here,
Okay.
like using blockchain technology to track the origin of materials and ensure transparency in the supply chain. There's also a growing movement towards this closed-loop recycling,
Right.
where old batteries are repurposed and their materials are recovered, so they're not just ending up in landfills.
So it's about taking a holistic view, looking at the entire ecosystem of an EV, not just the shiny car in the showroom.
Exactly. And this really ties into another fascinating aspect that your source highlighted, the potential impact of EVs on the global economy.
Okay.
We're not just talking about a shift in the automotive industry, but like a complete reshuffling of the deck when it comes to energy production, infrastructure, even geopolitics.
Okay, now you're blowing my mind a little bit.
Yeah.
What kind of reshuffling are we actually talking about here?
Well, I mean, for starters, imagine a world where oil-rich nations no longer hold all the cards.
Right.
With EVs, that balance of power could shift towards the countries that control resources like lithium, cobalt, all those other critical battery materials.
Mm-hmm.
And we're also going to see massive investments in renewables,
Yeah.
like solar, wind power, as that demand for clean electricity just skyrockets.
Of course.
This could lead to, I mean, think about it, entirely new industries and job markets.
Oh, it's not just about driving a different kind of car. It's about creating a whole new economic landscape. It makes you wonder who the winners and losers will be in this new world order.
It's a question worth pondering. And speaking of pondering, your source also delves into another pretty mind-boggling aspect of this whole EV revolution, the rise of autonomous vehicles.
Oh, yeah, self-driving cars. It feels like we've been talking about these forever.
I know, right?
Are they finally about to become a reality?
I think so. I mean, the technology is advancing rapidly, and EVs are actually the perfect platform for autonomous driving systems.
Mm.
They're already equipped with these really sophisticated sensors,
Mhm.
software,
Right.
and their electric powertrains. They offer this incredible level of precision and control, really ideal for self-driving algorithms.
So instead of just replacing our gas guzzlers with electric ones, are we about to hand over the keys altogether?
It's a real possibility, and it raises some pretty fascinating questions about the future of transportation in general.
Like what?
Well, will we still own cars? Or will we be subscribing to self-driving services that just whisk us around town on demand?
I could get used to that.
Right. Will cities be transformed as parking lots and garages become obsolete? And perhaps most importantly, how will this impact our sense of freedom,
Right.
individuality, our connection to the act of driving itself?
Those are some big questions. It's almost like we're on the verge of a sci-fi movie, but it's actually happening right now.
It is a really exciting time to be alive, that's for sure.
Yeah.
But as with any major technological advancement, we need to be mindful of the potential downsides as well.
What kind of downsides are we talking about?
Well, for starters, there's the question of job displacement.
Right.
As automation takes over the transportation sector, what happens to the millions of people who currently earn a living driving trucks, taxis, buses?
Yeah.
We need to be thinking about retraining programs, creating new opportunities for those who might be left behind in this transition.
That's a really, really important point. We can't get so caught up in the excitement of the new technology that we forget about the human cost.
Exactly. And on a broader societal level, we need to be mindful of the potential for increased inequality.
Mm.
You know, if self-driving cars and these ride-hailing services become the norm, will access to transportation be equitable?
Right.
Or will it further widen the gap between the haves and the have-nots?
It's a lot to wrap your head around, but these are the kinds of questions we need to be asking ourselves as we kind of navigate this new electric frontier.
Precisely. And that's what makes your deep dive so timely and important.
Well, thank you.
It's not just about understanding the technology. It's about really grappling with these complex ethical, economic, and social implications of this shift toward an electric future.
It's a lot to process, but I feel like I'm starting to see the bigger picture here. We're not just talking about electric cars. We're talking about reimagining our entire relationship with transportation and the world around us.
Exactly. And that brings us to another crucial aspect highlighted in your source: the role of policy and regulation in shaping this electric future.
So it's not just enough to sit back and let the EV revolution happen. Governments actually have a pretty big role to play here.
Huge, yeah. The source makes it clear that policy decisions, they're going to be absolutely crucial in shaping the pace and the direction of this whole transition.
Okay.
We're talking about things like incentives for EV buyers, investments in charging infrastructure, setting emissions standards, maybe even phasing out those gas and diesel vehicles altogether.
Okay, so kind of like setting the rules of the road for this whole electric vehicle game changer.
Exactly. And
Mhm.
it's not just about national policies either, right? This is a global shift. It requires international cooperation.
Hmm.
We need to be sharing technologies, making sure that developing nations, they have a seat at the table, and working together to really address these challenges and opportunities that we've been talking about.
It's like we're all in this electric carpool together, whether we like it or not. But seriously, this has been such an eye-opener for me. I feel like I've gone from EV curious to EV informed in the span of an hour.
Yeah.
What's the biggest takeaway for you? If you had to leave our listener with just one thought to ponder, what would it be?
Going through all this with you, it really got me thinking. The real question isn't just, what kind of car will we drive in the future? It's what kind of world do we actually want to create because of this shift?
Hmm.
Do we want a future where technology just ends up making existing inequalities even worse? Or can we actually use this as a chance to build a more sustainable, a more equitable world for everyone?
Wow. That's a pretty powerful thought to leave us with. And you know what? It's not just about electric vehicles, is it? It's about how we approach any major technological advancement. It's about asking those tough questions, considering all the different angles, and, making sure that we're all steering the ship in the right direction.
I think that's right. And it's those conversations, it's that kind of thoughtfulness, that's where real change happens.
Well said. And on that note, I think we've given our listeners a lot to think about. From batteries to the future of cities to the very nature of transportation, we've really gone under the hood of the EV revolution.
It's been a pleasure diving deep with you.
Until next time, keep those questions coming, keep exploring, and as always, thanks for taking this deep dive with us.